I might have knocked through part of my heart in my sleep, but I can't be sure. I should double check the camera's power down before that occurred. Backseat swerver, pull the mask down further. Road rash, speed merchant, flying blind as a bat out the inferno. Bend, crash, and purge. Fantasy polluted with a bad dream's guilt. Nap exclusively in the casket still. Latched and nailed. Autobiography misconstrued as a fanfic film produced by a sensationalist. I just can't mourn the expirations of the characters I don't relate with. Take a door off any door. Make a portal in the bedroom floor. Try to force that dream journal past the threshold of this dimension's borders. Say it's all a metaphor and play it off. I'll ghostwrite my arch enemy's acceptance speech as long as I can name the cost. No lengthy talks, just please let the effigy resemble me. See, I've owned incredibly inaccurate action figures in the past, and I ain't about imposters. Get a sculptor. Dead in the water, you're predator fodder. Start pedaling harder. Life is but a night terror. Seek medical solace. Nervous on the first day to plan overage? Go and hit your wagon to a solar system if you want to glow a bit. Yeah, I'm full of it. Empty prom dress under the toilet lid. Somebody thought they'd Rapunzel away their social obligations. Of course they did that. Moment that you notice that you're codependent because you've grown a bit, and so you throw a fit and overthinking calling quits and go to bed at night like, holy shit, you're alone again. Lead a horse to wall or shuttle a yacht. Feed a road and a quarter ounce and eat the cost just to see how it talks. I don't need all the showmanship. Jet setter on a dead earth. Exhale chemtrail. Tread deserts to collector. Hey, how do I affect sales? Death threats embedded in the neck parts of the best workers so they'll like get better reviews or whatever. You can feel the pressure in your entrails. Baby boomer need a binky. Angry consumer write a thick piece. Daily news with a sick teeth while the Reagan youth exercise free speech. Salute your options. Reduce to marginalisms and fixed fleeting stock trends. Watch the unboxing of your doctored subconscious brought to you by Comcast. While we put a little propaganda from our sponsors on blast. I don't usually talk economics or politics on songs like that, but if that's what it takes to get y'all to listen, then welcome to my current events podcast. What are we talking about this week, Hash?
Hello, everybody. Welcome on into the Below the Noise podcast, a safe space for artists to talk their creative process while showcasing their work in a hybrid interview performance setting. Hosted by Alex Riddle, myself, Colin Castard. We want to thank you for tuning in. Today, we welcome in the insanely gifted lyrical wordsmith, Lt Headtrip, or Lt Headtrip, depending on what kind of mood he's in.
Facts.
How are you
Welcome.
doing?
Thanks for having me in.
Yeah.
That's a really nice setup you got here.
Thank you.
2 cats. All the equipment, the audio, the visual equipment is great. The lighting's great. It's decorated wonderfully. The cats take the cake.
You know, I always say 2 cats are better than 1. 2 cats, it's double the fun.
My G.
Yeah.
All right. Headtrip is a rapper, producer, and the head of the indie hip-hop label We Are the Karma Kids. Headtrip cut his teeth as a performer and promoter in New York City with a DIY mantra embracing its gritty underground. Intense performances and an off-kilter yet thoughtful lyricism have garnered him respect as a diverse, passionate musician on and off the stage. So you just got done performing your newest record, Tap on the Glass, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is produced entirely by DOS 4GW.
That's correct.
That's correct. And he's from Australia.
Yeah. He was in Melbourne for a long time. I think he's in Perth now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we connected years ago. He's done a lot of work for Arm & Hammer, Woods and Elucid separately, and a lot of other Curly Castro.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of backwoods cats.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fucking journey.
Yeah.
That performance, man. I enjoyed that a lot.
Thanks.
You really covered a broad range of like topics, of energies, of sounds, like both in the production and in the lyricism. It's like I felt like I got all sides of you.
Yeah. Thank you. I try to put as much of myself into every project as I possibly can. I believe that we're all multifaceted, right? But I feel that a lot of artists think that they need to only display one side of themselves. I prefer to put it all out there.
Yeah.
Be vulnerable, beat my chest a little, be scared, be scary, and then the album drops and I'm like, oh my what have I done? I showed every little part of myself. And it's a little intense, but being able to perform all these songs that I've written, arranged, and memorized in a space like this, totally worth the payoff.
Yeah.
A lot of fun to be able to go on that journey myself again.
Yeah, I mean, you can feel that completeness in the delivery of it, and in the writing and execution. Like it feels very honest and very genuine. Definitely appreciate that.
Comes from a real place,
Yeah. And that's, as you were saying, like how a lot of artists like to go for one note and kind of, make sure that they're hitting it perfectly in time or in tune, That's kind of like a metaphor for our culture that we live in at this point. Whereas a lot of people, they want, like especially with social media culture, people want to only present the final product. They only want to, they have like an image that they need to present, put forth. When in reality, we are complex creatures and complex human beings. So.
In fact, maybe now more so than ever, you don't get to just be a rapper anymore. When I started rapping, I had to record myself. I had to make my own beats, and I had to figure out how to design the album artwork, right? So you're wearing many hats, but nowadays you have to also run your social media and you have to present yourself. Like, I can't tell you how many times that I sit on Twitter thinking I should say something. I'm like, I spent all my time writing, like, why do I also need to write a tweet? And then it just comes out like, I'm walking down Hawthorne. What up, Portland?
Right.
There's even like more stuff for this next generation of rappers to do, and those of us that are still creating.
Yeah.
But for some reason, a lot of people feel like, despite all of these talents that they have to one lane it. And I'm here to say, you don't have to one lane it. Get weird, freak some people out, have too much fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that like this topic of the ever increasing workload is something that comes up frequently when we talk to people, because I think it's something that really universally affects all people creating art. Not even just in music, but just art in general. Is like that ease of accessibility creates this like rampant consumption that is just ever faster and faster. And so,
or at least you hope it does.
Yeah, well, I mean, just across the board. I mean, of all content, it's like people consume content faster and faster and faster. It becomes more and more efficient. The doom scrolling gets easier.
It's like all I wanted to do was crochet maps, shout out, not to scale. And now here I am running 3 Instagrams.
Right. Yeah, dude, for sure. Yeah. It's it seems like an unsustainable system, but it also appears that there are people who are willing to do it and who can and do it effectively.
I don't know. I mean, part of it is a lot of people have somebody helping them.
Right.
And I would suggest for anybody that is struggling to keep up with all of this, instead of every day making a post, form a release plan. You spent years making your record. Like, spend 5 hours one day before the thing's mastered, putting together posts that will last 3 weeks after your album comes out.
Right.
And then you have it all right there, ready to just paste in. Because, I mean, I don't know about you, but the second that I put out an album, I'm like, my entire vision of myself shifts. And it's difficult to be in, okay, now generate copy, do all this stuff. But if you already have it locked and loaded, so that's what I try to do with the artists that I manage. And I do it less for myself because, I can get away with it. But that's just kind of how I try to approach it. And then I don't have to worry about that. I can get back to writing, and I can be multifaceted in ways that I want instead of in ways that self-marketing demands.
Right. That makes sense. Time management is big, Do you feel like that kind of work in general competes with your sort of creative output, or do you view it as sort of part of your creative output? You were showing me the sort of like way that you present music videos, and like that to me is a very creative way to do it, and like involves you doing something interesting and going out into the world and so on and so forth. But sorry, that caught me off guard. Sorry about that. So it's like, yeah, does that compete with your creativity, or is it an extension of your creativity?
Yeah, so when I am rolling out an album or generating the rollout for an album, I don't write.
Okay.
I can. Somebody's like, come to the studio, let's do this song. I can, but I find myself struggling. And in fact, right now, up until Tap on the Glass came out, I was constantly writing. It's the best stuff I've ever written. Really excited about the projects that I've been penning. And then the second that it dropped, even though I had a lot of stuff lined up to showcase the different aspects of the album that I want to share to garner interest, I find that all of my creative juices are now over here, which is honestly fine. It gives me a chance to watch movies and read and come up with and live life, and store up ideas. I'm saying it's fine, but like I was up till 3 a.m. the other night trying to finish a song. I only had 6 bars left. It took me 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, and
sometimes
like,
that's the hardest part, though. It's like
It's
the last
true.
part of the verse.
I'm good at the first 75%.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to bring it home, like at that minute where it's like, oh, now I have to like finish this.
I tried to write the last 4 bars directly after writing the first 4 bars.
Gotcha.
I try
Form
to,
the bridge.
because then and then you can connect it all. But it just, it doesn't always write. I like to say the verse. Sometimes the verse comes easy. Sometimes it writes itself.
Right.
Sometimes it's work like anything else. Can't be helped.
Right.
That rhymes.
There you
Write
go.
that down, Pat.
Well, let's talk about the first song you performed, Current Events. A snippet of the description from the music video. You're seeking refuge in your mom's basement. You toll away at a monotonous loop for endless days, waiting out a national quarantine. So a lot of the themes of the album and the way that it was written was during quarantine for you. And so tell me a little bit about that song. I pulled some quotes out of it as well.
Sure.
And I can hit you with a couple, but
So that song I started years before COVID hit.
okay.
I wrote just a long verse to a different producer's beat. And then I remember I tweeted, I didn't know this guy. I tweeted, y'all rappers will call each other by your wacky ass superhero names, but you won't figure out how to say they, them. Like you won't get these simple pronouns down, but you're willing to call somebody Lieutenant Headtrip. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? Ridiculous to me. Like have a little respect, for humanity. And that producer responded, what the fuck, bro? And I was like, all right, I'm going to use this for something else. Yeah. So I had this version of this song and I put it on one of DOS4GW's beats. And I had about an EP's worth of music with DOS pre-COVID. COVID hit. I ended up in my mom's basement. A very good setup, I must say. I'm very grateful. A lot of people.
Shout out to mom.
She's my biggest fan. She's my biggest supporter. I love her so much. And she put me and my partner up and it was a blast. Quarantine was really hard, but I found a lot of love and a lot of support. So anyway, I'm in my mom's basement with this EP and basically I spent a lot of time working it into an album because I couldn't really come up with new, fresh things. So instead, I looked at the landscape of the record, created things, and reworked themes into a lot of songs. And Current Events is basically just a second introduction, right? It's the second track. And the first track is hi, this is what I've been doing for the past 20 years of my life. And the second track is basically a day-to-day. So we shot this music video on a camcorder that I found in the basement. And it's basically a day in the life. I wake up, I make some eggs, I put on my Coogee sweater just to go take the trash out, and then I sit down at my computer to create music.
It's just simple times, for all the bullshit and stuff, it was nice to be able to take a moment and breathe and create.
A lot of self-reflection,
Yes.
a lot of intake. I watched a lot of movies, ran a lot, and I made this record dense.
Yeah.
Well, so hit you with a couple quotes here,
Okay.
and we can talk about them. So, road rash speed merchant flying blind as a bat out the inferno.
Okay. So Road Rash is a video game.
Yes. I was wondering if you were referencing that.
Sega
I
Genesis.
used to play that shit all the time.
Yep. That's like one of the sound effects from it. PE No One. I never knew what that meant as a character. It's Public Enemy number one. I had no idea. Anyway, I spent a lot of time on the road. I spent a lot of time touring, and I drive the speed limit straight up. I'm not trying to get pulled over, dog. You kidding me? So, a road rash speed merchant is somebody who's not afraid to go fast, even if it means that they're covered in road rash. They're selling speed, flying blind as a bat out the inferno. I mean, blind as a bat out of hell. I'm combining multiple idioms to create an image of a very panicked man who's selling the anxiety that he lives on. Right?
Yeah.
And it just builds it builds an image that I think defines a huge chunk of my personality on this record.
Okay.
Next one I got is say it's all a metaphor and play it off.
Oh,
And,
sure, yeah.
I want to make a guess here.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
So, do people like think that some of your imagery in your songs is a little too intense, and then they get turned off by it, and you're just like, it's a metaphor.
Oh, it's just a metaphor.
Yeah,
It's just a metaphor. Yeah, because I vacillate between dense metaphorical imagery, right? I came up listening to Aesop. It's okay to just say things that only make sense to you or interpretable millions of ways, right? I think it's a beautiful thing. You let the audience make what they want out of what you're saying, even though there's intention behind it. There's a lot to be said for intention, but there's also a lot to be said for the audience's response and their interpretation. And then there's lyrics that are true, that are like, that actually happened. I actually did that. That people have been curious about or turned off by. And I'm like, it's just a metaphor, right? I can kind of fall back on that. Yeah. And it's kind of an attack on myself too. Like, say it's all a metaphor and play it off. I'll ghostwrite my archenemy's acceptance speech as long as I can name the costs. No lengthy talks. Like, it's not, yeah, sure. I'm just a hired gun. I'm just a writer. None of it means anything. And it's a way that I can hide behind one of my skills as an artist instead of being true to myself, which is a little cowardly. But I'm here to just be my entire self. I'm here to be badass. I'm here to be cowardly. We all have our moments, right?
Yeah. I hear that. Yeah. The album, your lyrics are all heavily image inducing. This song, specifically, I had the note, it was a thorough amalgamation of Orwellian cultural observations and sci-fi horror.
Oh, for sure. I got into sci-fi. My mom gave me those like fantastic stories, but like Tales from the Crypt, but sci-fi versions of them.
Yeah.
And they're just horrific, and they all end with this wild twist, which I'll get to later with another one of the songs that we're talking about. But it's a huge influence on my writing. I think that creating a universe and exploring that universe oftentimes generates more honest imagery and more honest commentary than trying to talk about what's going on right now. Because at the end of the day, there is no right now. The moment that my mouth gets the word now out, the moment's passed. There is no present. There's only an ongoing happening. So the future is almost more real than the present. And I certainly lean on this aspect of sci-fi a lot, especially in this record, because we feel like we're living in the future. The record's mainly about being watched and watching, right?
Yeah.
And that's best set in this Orwellian future that we already exist in.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, we're there. We're
there.
It's
We're
like,
here. Here is there.
It's the same, right? And there's such a blurring of like the boundaries between, even real interaction and digital interaction, whatever it may be. Like we are in the future. It's fucking happening.
We are living it.
It is everything that people were frightened it would be.
Been an enormous technology boom in the last 10 years. I mean, we got to watch the internet grow up, right? And it's horrifying.
Terrifying. Absolutely fucking terrifying.
A journalist recently responded to me saying he wasn't sure if my album was weird for the sake of being weird or shocking or scary for the sake of being scary or shocking. And I think that my album is more shocked than shocking. Is more horrified.
I feel
than
that. That was also the takeaway that I had from it. Was it was more of a reaction to the horror,
right? I'm terrified
rather than
at
being
the cameras.
the horror.
I'm also terrified at being the observer,
right?
But I still like hearing from journalists those questions. Especially when they're questions and not statements.
Yeah.
Because I know this guy's going to listen to the record 2 more times. And if you listen to my record a half a time, I thank you. There's a lot of music out there, There's a lot of art out there.
Well, baby boomer, need a binky, angry consumer, write a think.
This one jumped out to me like any of the 5 or 6 times I listened to this song, because it's like I listened through a bunch of times and then you performing and sound checking, trying to catch different things. That line every single time.
I remember that one from when I saw you live, because when I saw you, that was the first time I'd heard your music. So.
Yeah, I was sick. I like it when people hear my music live for the first time, which is a wonderful aspect of this podcast that you have us perform. Because recorded music's dope, but if you got the motherfucker in the studio, let's go, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Facebook, right? I think that a lot of the older generation that was, our brains stopped forming, around 25. Right. Our skull fully connects when we're about 25 years old. That's the true end of puberty. And we all got to see the internet go from Al Gore and AOL and dial-up to what it basically is today by the time we were in our mid to late 20s. Whereas the generations before us, especially the baby boomers, already had like retirement funds.
Right.
And so for them to try to deal with this technology boom is very difficult. And I just see these boomers get online and just like and it's like they're chewing. It's like they're teething.
Yeah.
But the teeth that they're trying to grow will never come. There are these internet teeth and these technology teeth, and maybe they just need a pacifier, a binky.
Yeah.
And then I spent a little too much time in the comment section. And by a little too much time, I've done it like 4 times in my life.
Yeah.
And like, oh my goodness, these people deserve jobs. The amount of work that they put into reviewing a product that like is clearly not made for them.
Yeah, right. It's like, why do you have an opinion on this?
It's such a, so again, the song is me waking up, and the first line is, I might have gnawed through my partner's heart in my sleep, but I can't be sure, I think. Or part of my own heart. I don't know. I've changed the lyrics so many times. And basically I wake up and get in the car and go. And this is me opening the newspaper, opening the phone, and just seeing all these people and their opinions pouring out. I think that a pacifier might do some of y'all a little good.
Probably be more effective for what they're actually trying to do. But a lot of people don't know what they want. And that's part of the day. Yeah, it is the struggle. Well, current events, fantastic song. But let's get into the second song here. Mm-hmm. It is In Somnis Praestigiae. Praestigiae.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it right. So she knows how to pronounce it.
Yeah, exactly.
She's got it. She's like,
it's our head of HR here.
Yeah.
Well, what can you tell? What does that mean before we get into the song?
So there's a saying in Somnis Veritas.
Yeah.
In dreams, there's truth. So my previous album, Dreamery, is all about working on. I was the lead bartender at a fancy seafood restaurant on a resort island off the East Coast, and it felt like I was living somebody else's dream. 60 hours a week, just like churning out drinks for tourists. And there comes a point where, is this place real? Like I could look up and see the Milky Way. It felt like a dream in all the good ways and all the bad ways. And so this is a carryover concept from that album. So I found this quote: in dreams there is truth, but also in dreams there are lies and illusions. And so those are the other two words. I had a classics major that I went to college with, Kim, translate in dreams there are illusions, in dreams there are lies. And then I got another classmate of mine from college to operatically sing these lines as the hook.
Oh, so that's all
recorded
all vocals. I just assumed that was a sample from.
I tried to make it sound like a sample.
Somewhere,
it was really
like
good.
That. Yeah,
really well
that's
done.
Christina Pecce is very talented, and we worked a long time to blend the two hooks that I had written for the song.
You don't very often hear like an opera style vocal on a hip hop song.
Well, opera's very close to home at this point. My partner, Crystal, her mother was an opera singer. Her father was a piano prodigy. She worked for the Portland Opera for 8 years. And I've grown to really appreciate that art form since I've been attending opera events. And I also think that there's a huge lack of female vocals in a lot of my music. I mean, I prefer the company of women, and I don't have that a lot in my older catalog. And so I was just trying to figure out how to fit those ideas in. And went online, hey, anybody want to contribute operatic vocals to my song? And bang, I got a response. And so I got those lyrics translated, and it just really fit what I was going for in the track.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's check it out.
Am I a different person every day I wake up? What happens to me from yesterday? I swear, some people believe we're always dreaming. You just don't notice because we're too awake. I stumbled in and out of love a dozen times over before I woke up a feverish soldier. I'd slept through my own eager enrollment. Rose and boasted that I was the sole deaf composer of this untold story, while I fumbled for my stolen notebooks underneath the podium. The growing Cassandra complex of a shadow-hunting author and poltergeist mantras on display for that post-mortem stardom. He swears that he's been hardened by the haunting, but Stockholmed into following their ghostly orders. Overdosed, frozen corpse, now he's stone-cold sober, finally. Stigmata glory holes, pinata heart of gold, corroded mortal coil on a pachyderm on a cosmological tortoiseshell. Misanthropic social cues and addiction-sponsored horoscopes from pawnshop oracles offering hopelessness to the most at risk. How deplorable. I faced the prospect that I was hostage in someone's mirage and weighed the odds against the consequences of cognizance, a lofty risk. They say bated breath control play is the cornerstone of every crumbling home. Had a pleasant childhood but still a tortured soul. Check the portfolio. What's life other than a timeless story to tell? Act durable. Nothing's as it seems to be. Nothing's as it seems. Life is but a life is but a life is but a dream. Nothing's as it seems to be. Nothing's as it seems. Life is but a life is but a life is but a life. I surrendered my prudence when I committed to tying blood knots with my would-be wife. I'm still nervous to fall asleep because my succubus is good with knives. I keep a bottle in the toolkit. This is a disguise, I've just forgotten how to remove it. Hey, who you calling human? Keep it moving. Look, it thinks it's lucid as the sky begins to crack. From where they stand in judgment, they're blind to the writing on the back. They could only pry their eyes out, they could almost hear the imbibers cackle as they commemorate the proper signage for their trap. This my symbolic logic. I personify sound, kissed by that cosmic goddess. Where's your bottom line now? A miraculous pinch of stardust with bizarre cognitive malfunction. We are the unlikely spontaneous combustion. Either the wandering eyes of my reflection just turned sentient, or I'm the echo beyond this stubborn glass threshold, so desperate to be special. What a spectrum, what a spectacle. Awaken my escapists, your dreams are untenable. Life is but a dream. Nothing's as it seems to be, nothing's as it seems. Life is but a dream. Nothing's as it seems to be, nothing's as it seems. Life is but a dream. Nothing's as it seems to be, nothing's as it seems. Life is but a dream. Nothing's as it seems to be, nothing's as it seems. Life is but a dream. Nothing's as it seems to be, there's stuffing coming out the fucking seams, can't you see it? Life is but a dream. Nothing's as it seems to be, nothing's as it seems. Life is but a
So, this track, to call this soundscape dystopian is almost too easy. It feels almost as if you were an android from Blade Runner gone rogue who can't help but dissect the hypocrisy packing the dark alleyway.
Very eloquent, sir.
Thank you.
Did I not talk about being a replicant while I was performing?
You sure did.
I was like ad-libbing about being a replicant.
I was going to change the mic levels, and I was like, man, I don't want to even enter this shot. I want him to just keep going. Like, this is great.
You can bring it up
It's
in
like
post.
fucking-
It was there.
Yeah.
I do have this sneaking suspicion that none of this is real sometimes,
Sure feels that way.
And it's kind of a beautiful feeling. I kind of enjoy it. I dream a lot and I lucid dream a lot. There's this theory that we're always dreaming, but that when we're awake, we're just distracted by all the stimuli. And it's simply when our brain finally shuts down that we notice the dreams that are happening. And there's these really fun questions like which reality is more real and how real is reality? And living in your own mind as artists do so often, those questions snowball. And then there's this idea that there's a real world. So Friedrich Nietzsche posits that the three biggest distractions from this life are the real world. Once I get a real job, once I'm a real person.
I'm a real boy.
Once I'm a real boy. Just be Pinocchio, no? Dreams, whether they're sleeping dreams, or I suppose you could interpret the German Traum as also ambitions, and the afterlife. Because if you're living for any of those three things, you're not living for this life. And while I'm just fascinated by the dream world and the idea of reality, but you just got to kind of keep it moving, right? Right?
Yeah.
Or you're going to be stuck in these eternal questions. But to pose them in the way that I do in this song helps me work through it. And also, like, we all feel this way sometimes. And it's fascinating. You don't have to be scared by it. Or it's okay to be scared by it. Just let it happen. Don't recoil in horror. Lean into it.
I mean, one of the questions you pose in the song is oscillate, automate, all-seeing offense, hold up, wait, who cleans God's lens?
Okay, so God's Lens, title of the track.
That's a different song. I apologize. I just jumped
okay.
my things.
That's fine. Hi.
Well, how about overdosed, frozen corpse, now he's stone cold sober?
Yeah, so in Somnis, the first few bars are more so about a man that wakes up after having enrolled in the army.
Okay.
And slept through his own eager enrollment. And then the man's trying to give a speech and claims it's all true, but he's stolen everything that he's about to say. So the growing Cassandra complex of a shadow hunting author, the Cassandra complex is knowing the future, and warning people of a coming impending tragedy, but nobody believes you. 12 Monkeys.
The Terminator.
I know, I like that movie too.
Yeah.
Terminator. So, the shadow hunting author and would-be mantras. So basically, this man only finds sobriety and peace once he's dead. After all this torment of living a lie and knowing the truth, but having nobody believe him. Just this very complicated relationship with truth, reality, and illusion and self.
Who you calling human?
Keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
Yeah. Well, as I said earlier, if you don't keep it moving, you're going to get caught up in these questions, and they could trap you or bring you down. I almost feel offended that somebody would refer to me as human, because people's ideas of human are so cynical. I believe that original sin is the greatest tragedy in the philosophy of most Christian sects. Like the idea that we were born flawed, any more flawed than anything else, is absurd to me. We are miraculous.
Yeah.
Existence, consciousness is miraculous. And to be called human is almost the same as to be called an original sinner that needs to beg for forgiveness to exist.
You're only human.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
You're like, no. Like,
no.
It's like that implies,
We don't even know what
an
we are.
inherent flaw.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm right with you there. It's like the idea, the amount of chance and like luck that it takes for us to be sitting here existing and thinking and experiencing is so like even unobservably large, you know? It's like we can't even comprehend the like necessary series of things that has happened on a cosmic scale to get us to having this conversation.
And this reminds me
that's
of...
pretty fucking miraculous.
I recently read a comic about, so we've invented teleportation. And there's people that are scared of it, like a phobia, because they feel like the person who's dematerialized dies in that moment. And when they're rematerialized, they are now a new person with simply the memories of this previous person that they were. And so they seek out advice, and a doctor basically says, well, every time you go to sleep, maybe how is that much different? And then you wake up a new person. And instead of that putting him at ease, he then thinks that he dies every day and he loses his mind. And then finally he meets a scientist who explains that our atoms aren't the same atoms that we had that built ourselves just years ago.
Yeah.
Matter is constantly shifting. This idea that we are our corporeal form is silly. While we are very attached to our bodies in a way that modern society won't admit, you can heal your brain with your brain.
Right. And the body is not a singular thing, as
but
you're
it's
saying.
Not,
it's like it's
not
something that is in flux.
This is a disguise of just forgotten how to remove it.
Right. Yeah, that line also stuck out to me well, and a great moment in your performance as well.
Trying to rip
really
my mask
fucking
off.
felt that,
And I love it. I get to say that and try to rip my human mask off. I feel it in the moment too when I'm in there. Whew.
Yeah, powerful. It's good.
Well, this is my symbolic logic. I personify sound kissed by that cosmic goddess. Where's your bottom line now?
So symbolic logic is something that I don't understand. Right? It's a form of mathematics. It's really cool. It involves symbols and logic, Symbology, totally different thing. Logic's something I'm not too good at. I'm not a mathematician. But the idea of the two words symbolic logic combined, like what I'm saying into a microphone, me expressing myself, is me using symbols to make some sense of things. So I'm just I'm taking the word symbolic logic and using it for what I'm doing. To personify sound, now, there's not a huge difference between sound waves, light waves, and the physical matter that we perceive as impenetrable. So not only am I creating sound, but I am also kind of sound. We are kind of like wavelengths. There's not a huge difference. We're crystallized light.
On a fundamental level.
On a very fundamental
vibration.
level, yeah. And again, we are miracles of existence, a miraculous pinch of stardust. The calcium in our bones and teeth was likely brought to this planet through meteors that traveled eons through space to then land in or near our planet to build us. We are stardust. And that all brings me back to the last line of that phrase, which was the hardest part to write. I walked around in the woods for hours trying to think of that last line. And it's basically like you're really concerned about the bottom line of your company. Like you're really concerned about your profits and your fucking money right now. Like we are miracles and you're wasting your fucking life thinking about money and what progress means in this very limited capacity. Move on, dog. Be a miracle. Celebrate yourself.
Be a miracle.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's really easy. I mean, as we were talking about the many hats that musicians have to wear or artists of any kind, you know, with the advent of all this technology and the ability to view and gestate over and really hyper consume the analytics side of things. That's what that line kind of like meant to me. It's like, where's your bottom line now? It's like, well, does it matter? It's like,
Does it matter?
we're creating art, you know, it's like, it doesn't like, I don't know. I get wrapped up periodically in like how many views or how many listens my podcast is going to get, you know, and I had a dip in August and I was like, oh crap, you know, like, am I doing something wrong? It's like, and then I had to think about it for a while. I was like, oh, there's so much shit happening in the world. This isn't about me, you know, but it's like, it's easy to immediately assume that the bottom line is you and like what you are doing to affect it and stuff like that.
Exactly. Again, I advised all you artists out there, set aside 1 day a month to look at your stats. And don't look at it other than that. It's not going to change your approach to your music in a positive way or your podcast in a positive way if you're constantly looking at those stats. Open it up every first Monday of the month maybe. And take notes. Put it in context. Everybody's traveling, trying to get their final summer vacations in. There's a bunch of holidays in August. It's tough. Not a lot of people are out there just consuming new things. Wait till February. Everybody's listening to podcasts in February. If you want to base your worth off of something, do it in February.
Do it in February.
You know, just give yourself a moment to exist ever. Don't get caught up in checking those stats all the time. I don't even give my artists their stats unless they ask for them. You know, the initial rush of views and sales is fun, but like you don't want to know that only 3 people downloaded your album in this quarter.
It's not going to do any good for you.
You're not going to write the next album better.
There's no net positive to that because you either shift your mentality in the music you're creating for the purpose of trying to get more people to buy it, which is, you know, in that circumstance, not what you're going for, you know, or you feel like shit about yourself and you create worse art because you don't feel confident. And I think we've probably all fallen victim to that at one point or another. You know, you're like, you make something, you know, for whatever combination of things, it doesn't, you know, people don't listen to it. There's a lot of shit out there to listen to. Like you said, like honored if someone listens to half a record because there's a lot of music to listen to. Yeah, right.
Dog, thank you.
But, you know, sometimes as artists will so internalize, you know, their process, it's like you look at that and you're like, is my art good? Like, and it's like, man, like to tie the value of art to like a data point, It's a little
silly.
It's a little counterproductive to the art.
So
you know?
again, like, take off the other hat and put on the other hat intentionally. When it's time to plan your next release, look at how your album performed then. Don't look at that while you're creating. And always be creating. Again, carve out 4 hours on a Monday and look at that stuff. Don't waste your time thinking that any of that matters when you're not in marketing mode.
Yeah, I came up with a saying a while ago on my other podcast, The Nostalgia Pit, where we were just talking about this idea that, you know, it's so hard to be an artist and create art nowadays when you're so inundated with so much content. But essentially, like, we're in a consumption culture, you know, it's all about, you know, watching all the movies, you know, there's so much music. It's like, oh, I got to catch up. My favorite artist or some of the artists that I love, they just released a record. I haven't had a chance to get to it. Netflix has this new show, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you can't create and consume simultaneously. It's like you can't bark and bite like a dog at the same time.
Right.
So it's a really interesting juxtaposition.
You can't talk and eat at the same time.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
periods of like consumption of inspiration followed by periods of perspiration, you know?
Yeah, you need that. I find myself when I'm writing, when my pen's hot, I find myself ingesting and immediately letting it out. And it feels, I get artist fatigue from it. But then I find periods like this. Like, I'm not writing a lot right now. I wrote I finished a song last week, as opposed to 3 months ago when I wrote 3 songs in a week. You know, having patience with yourself is a huge component to this process.
Yeah. It's really easy, to, like you were talking about how that, like 6 hours for the last couple bars or something like that. I'm the king of writing the first 13.
Yeah.
And then the last 3 is just like, oh shit, man. Yeah. Like, what do I even,
how do you do it?
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of the time you don't want to force that creativity.
Don't force the vibe.
Like, if you crush out 12 bars instantly and like you come to that stopping point, it's a lot of the time it's very difficult to just put the pen down and be like, all right, I'm going to come back to it when I'm inspired again. And I'm going to finish that and it's going to be good. But like, I know for me, I'll try and push through. And sometimes you can still get some good stuff out of it, you know, like
sometimes you come back to it and address it, you know, you read it back, you listen to it back, whatever. And then you can sort of like, okay, that worked. That didn't work. Like, you know, this didn't serve the message that I was trying to convey, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Or fuck it, just let it be 12 bars. You know what I mean? Right? It's like,
I find I find a good approach is to write the hook and write the second verse. And then you can use those last 4 bars of that first verse to tie it in to the rest of the verse. Or you can sit there and give yourself a stomachache trying to write those last 4 bars in the moment.
Why do I suck?
Yeah. Well, let's get into the third track here, God's Lens, as I teased earlier a little bit.
This one was intense. I mean, they all have an intensity to them, but like this was another one that I listened to like a couple times to try and like get more of it. And like, some intense storytelling, you know, pretty intense themes, but like so visceral.
Thank you. This was a fun track to write. I had everything for this record, but it was still only 8 songs. So that's when I hit up Elucid and asked if I could use the song that he had, asked me to write a verse for so many years earlier, if I could use that song for the record. And he gave me the green light. Thank you, Elucid. And Das was into it too. And I still just needed one more song. And I had written Please Don't Tap on the Glass, the kind of title track, right? About the lion who's chained up and frees itself and mauls the audience. Please don't tap on the glass. And then the second verse is about an ape that tries to escape from the zoo only to realize that it doesn't know how to be free and returns to its cell. And I decided that I wanted to write a follow-up track to that track that is of the man that is affected by observation. The observer's paradox, something I learned when I was in grad school for linguistics, is that it's nearly impossible to capture anything in its natural state, because just by observing something, you change it. Mm-hmm. And the example that we dealt with constantly was, how do I get you to speak like a Pacific Northwesterner? I put the tape player down and you speak like there's a tape player there. I talk to you like my broadcast, which the Pacific Northwest does have a very broadcast dialect. It does. And you start to speak formally, nearly academically. Now, you know, a story about the time you got arrested or a childhood game often brings out some of those wonderful regional variations. But at the end of the day, my mere presence affects what I'm looking at. And that's not only in linguistic interviews, that's also in the wild.
Physics,
animals know when
quantum
you're
mechanics,
right.
You know.
So, as you know, atoms that are observed behave differently than atoms that are not observed. It works on an atomic level, the observer's paradox. This urge to observe that we have is constantly foiled by the action of observing. Huge theme in the record. So this man in God's Lens basically goes Ted Kaczynski on the world. He can't take it anymore. He can't take being observed anymore. And he moves out into the woods in an attempt to escape. Directly following the song about animals in captivity. And spoiler, going back to science fiction and this twist ending, he's finally alone. And he walks out through a trail, finds a beautiful opening, takes in a big breath and looks up. And written backwards on the sky is, "Please don't tap on the glass." He's still in a cell. It's impossible to escape this feeling of being watched. And I don't know if it was always like this, but it's not just me. We all feel it sometimes. And I dare you to believe yourself. It's an instinct. If you're being watched, you know, and you can feel it.
Gather round, children. It's story time. Don't tell your parents. Right this second, there's a man at his desk with agendas next to a stack of regrets. In a fantasy headspace, stabbing his pen through the eyes in the back of his general manager's head. But he fidgets, distracted instead. The old task rabbit hole's gravity effect. Panic persists and it cracks in his neck bone stretch. Medicaid, he handles the stress and keeps tabs on the cameras watching The Office. A blind spot short of omniscient optics. Automate, oscillate, all-seeing offense. Hold up, wait, who cleans God's lens? He ponders, head scan, post-it note on his monitor's webcam. Jobber. In-house yes man shit, might as well have a drip and a bedpan. Tethered to an enemy, collecting his amenities he'll never need, but punch that emptiness temporarily. Effortless spending, spree bet in his loft. Amazon delivery is only fresh box. Credit card debt like a snake in a long, got a fang and an ankle like everything fine. What a venomous liquid rise to the face and the arm. Fever help a daydream shino. Swearing an alcoholic ex was a wino. Beer after a heavy haul or 5 just fine, don't worry about me. History side note like, give me liberty or give me my blindfold. Most nights these days wakes on a couch with the shakes and a feculent taste in his mouth. But the day can't take it and he makes up his mind past the shade of a doubt to break the fuck out. Switch from the eye to a flip phone, get a couple shifts to the dive for a quick something. Fuck a IRS eye on his income, sick but he just throwing fire on the symptoms. That'll fix nothing. Where the big guns at, sell a flat, retire to a wigwam. Why reside in the eye of the shitstorm? Gotta be a walk where we don't get pissed on. Withdrawals all that he got on the mattress. Already tossed out that plastic. Leaves the fast food cancer sticker, rat race status quo for a backwoods cat. No more cameras, interest, internet friends, or self-serving executive decisions will dictate his insignificant existence. Misplaced maybe, but his hate too vicious. Distance, heart-grown frigid, inhale smoke from the charred up bridges. No visitors, no eyewitnesses, no more quantified supervised shifts. Cut ties to the civilized. Alive in exile, a unified mind is a prison. Like one man's vision is all I need. The call of the wild had set me free. Let's go. Where only the strong will prevail. Where a man's no longer surveilled. All the solitude got him starting to feel like he kinda maybe wanna put a bomb in the mail, but he's calmed by his sector. An exile far from the cell of his onlooker stares. The calls of the feral are all he cares to acknowledge. Solid, he follows a trail, and there at the end of the path, he takes in the wind to relax. Still the paranoia tears at the back of his skull, paralyzed dead in his tracks. He looks to the sky and he gasps. He can't help but laugh. Written backwards on the vast expanse. Please don't tap on the glass.
All right, so God's Lens. I love the bounce of this beat. It feels very much like a horrorcore rave.
I love that description.
Yeah.
I've dabbled in horrorcore, and Das4GW produces music that you could play at a rave. He does a lot of house. I don't know all the terms for electronic music that he makes, but he makes some really interesting music. I needed this last song for the record, and he sent me this beat, and he was like, pick a section, we'll loop it. And instead, I just wrote to the entire thing.
Yeah.
And he was like, I did not expect you to write to the entire thing. And I was like, well, you shouldn't have sent me a really dope beat, right?
Sounds great, yeah.
That sounds great. And I remember I was like 12 bars away from the end of the beat. And I'm still like talking about him reflecting on how he's and like I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta fit this in.
Like I'm gonna run out of place to tell this story.
Right. So I got it in there, and I kind of backed up the story a little bit. I rewrote a couple lines, and I got to the terrifying conclusion of the song finally. And I love this beat. It gave me, again, there's not a lot of melody in his production, at least the beats that I chose.
Yeah.
And it gives me a lot of room to play with my vocalizations and add the melody through my cadence. So I had so much fun writing this science fiction, almost horror story.
Yeah. I mean, it fits his production style for the beats that you chose for this project. Like, really appreciate the sort of soundscapes that are developed, as opposed to, like you said, like strict harmonic structure or like melodic structures. Like there are these very rich and dense, almost like ambient beds that it's built upon.
Yep.
And it really, it gives it a very sort of like score vibe almost, in a weird and dark and creepy way. But it really like underpins those emotions of the story that you're telling without being like, oh, this is like a beat, that's like a normal type of thing, right? It's like throughout the whole record, that kind of sound design eye was...
He has an incredible ear, and oftentimes his beats are one slowed down, distorted break with a couple simple synth, like drony synth lines, and that's it. And that's all you need sometimes to evoke emotion and a feeling, especially having a writer, a vocalist on top of it. I think that it's enough. It was fun to arrange some of the music on this. He gave me the stems, and I went to town. About half the songs I arranged, and he arranged the other half. Now, God's Lens is one, again, that he sent me complete. Right. And I didn't even want the stems for this. I don't even know if he has it. For anybody who doesn't know what stems are, the stems are, you get the kick separate and the snare separate and the bass line separate, and then you mix all of that together to create the final product. And that's convenient when it exists, but sometimes you could tinker with it for just forever, and it's never ending. And so when a beat shows up like this and it's already good to go and my voice already fits right perfectly in there, let's do it. I recorded this song more aggressively. And then I went back, and the last thing that I recorded for this album was the version that you hear, which is the main vocal. But if you listen closely, I slowly fade in the aggressive vocal take throughout the song, so that up until the last 4 bars, I am matched with this vocal tone and the very aggressive vocal tone that I originally recorded the song in. And I just didn't want to scare everybody away in the first 16, 24 bars of the song. I want people to pay attention to the story. And I feel like it builds up a lot better that way.
Yeah, agreed. We will for reference, I think it's worth saying that because a lot of these songs have such a sort of like intentionality to the way that you recorded them and blended them, I will link in the description each of these songs release recording individually so that you can check out the performance and also check out the sort of like recording so you can catch some of these things that he's talking about.
Thanks, dog.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so going back to the question I asked earlier when I skipped ahead, oscillate, automate, all-seeing offense, hold up, wait, who cleans God's lens?
Cameras oscillate. They're automated. They're all-seeing. And they are offensive. Also, he's looking around his office. He's oscillating. He's just a cog. He's an automaton. He's automating. All-seeing. He's so paranoid that he's looking everywhere at once. And he becomes offensive and takes action of his own life. So I'm describing the cameras and the man. The word oscillate, this is a non sequitur, the etymology of the word oscillate. So os means face in Greek. Now Bacchus, Dionysus, right, the wine god, they used to have celebrations and they would hang ornaments that were Bacchus or Dionysus' face on a tree. And they would turn. Now, ill is a suffix, which means it's a diminutive, which means it makes it small. So oscil means little face, and ate makes it into a verb. So oscillate initially just meant to little face. But those ornaments moved in such a way that now we have an oscillating fan that does exactly what Dionysus's face did on that ornament on the tree. So
that's really interesting.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's super cool. Wave is how we describe waves and, synthesizers and all of these various different components.
Etymology
That's
is
cool.
wacky. Language is wacky.
Language
Anyway.
is wacky.
Just a side.
I like it. Well, one of my favorite lines on the whole album was a line on this one. She agrees, it was one of her favorite lines as well, was give me liberty or give me my blindfold.
Yeah. Justice is blind. Right? Lady Liberty is not blind. Come on up, kitty. I feel that many people are desperate to either have freedom or they just don't want to know. And being so worn down and so frustrated with existence and trying to carve a space out for yourself and at the same time fighting for your freedom. It's like I either want to know everything or be completely numb, right? Those are the only two options at a certain point. And so you either start tripping on acid a bunch and reading a bunch of books, or you get drunk as hell every day and go through your routine, the liberty or the blindfold, and he at that point is at that stage in his life. At that point in his life, most nights these days wakes on a couch with the shakes and a feculent taste in his mouth. But he's hit his breaking point of just being an alcoholic with a blindfold. But today he can't take it and he makes up his mind past a shade of a doubt to break the fuck out, which is how each of the animals in the previous song and the antepenultimate track of the entire album decide, this is it, I'm breaking out. And from there on out, he's chosen the path of liberty and discarded the blindfold.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
She likes it.
She likes it.
So she went for the pit.
She went, tucks in, so credit card debt like a snake in the lawn, got a fang in the ankle, like everything's fine.
That was one of my favorite lines.
That's my favorite line. That's my favorite line to rap. So, credit card debt, it sneaks up on you. It's a snake in the grass. And I just changed the word grass to lawn. And immediately I skipped from credit card debt like a snake in the law. Everything fine. Because at that point, the meme of the burning, room with the dog and the cup of coffee, everything's fine, right? And I was like, ooh, I just got to fit a couple words in here. So credit card debt like a snake in the long at a fang and the angle like, everything fine. While the venomous liquid writhed through the face and the arms. And it was tough because I was like, where's the venom hit first? But if you got bit in the ankle, it's going to hit your face before it gets to your elbows, right? Rise to the face and the arm. Fever helped the daydream shine, though. So he's sick from his credit card debt. He's sick from all of this. But when you're sick, you have some of your most intriguing dreams, and some of your best inspiration can come from your breaking point. Again, back to Nietzsche. I haven't studied him in years, but I did a lot when I was in college and in grad school. Trying to read him in German was a trip. And he basically posits that we need to hit rock bottom in order to change, abandon all morality in order to build our own. And there's different ways of phrasing that, but basically being so sick with panic is like having venom in your system. And maybe that's what it takes for us to see what we could possibly accomplish to truly escape the horrors of the captivity that we subject ourselves to. And I love saying it. Credit card debt like a snake in the long at a fang and an angle like, everything bang! And then I switch the rhyme scheme. Fever help a daydream shine, though. I get to rhyme with wino up next. It's a good moment. I'm glad that you picked that one up.
Yeah, I think that was definitely my favorite line in the track. It sticks out. Nice contrast.
Yeah. Yeah, and it switches it up. It makes the flow a little more playful. Until then, I'm just like, it's hard to listen to. I mean, I don't know how many bars this song is, but it's over 40, maybe 60 something. And it's hard when you don't have a hook to bring them back in.
Yeah.
Like the break the fuck out part calls back, but you don't know that if you haven't heard the other songs,
Right.
So you got to have a little fun, play with it.
Well, and it's that sort of natural juxtaposition of the kind of situation, like the desperation. I feel like when you do approach that breaking point is often like, it's humorous in how absurd it is and how desperate it is. Like there's a like, is this real? Which sort of ties into the other thematic elements that you're talking about, where it's just like, everything's fine, and then the delivery of it is like, this sort of like, hands in the air.
What are you gonna do? Train Spotting is a comedy.
Yeah, right.
Schenectady, New York is a comedy. Like these desperate movies are wacky. If you can go there, like if you can see past the trauma.
It's the absurdity of it, the absurdity of the realities of existence, especially, when you're talking about things like credit card debt, like the idea.
It just doesn't exist.
What I mean?
It just doesn't exist, but it's
just so fucking,
it dictates so much of our lives,
right,
but it's not real.
It's not real, right?
It's not real. That's kind of the point.
Right. It's like,
real.
we judge adulthood by one's ability to indebt themselves to an organization willfully.
Right.
And it's like, we test your credibility by how willing you are to give away your agency for things that should be provided to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you want to exist? Oh, all right.
Okay.
Cool. We can deal with that.
Yeah.
We're going to lend you money, but if you pay it all off, that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
It's good if you're always in debt to us, but not too much.
But not too much.
Just the right amount of debt.
Spend some, pay it off. Spend some, pay it off. I intentionally didn't give this guy an occupation.
Yeah.
He's just a guy at a desk.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make this song about me. In fact, if you look at the back of my album, you'll see this triptych, which is the lion, the ape, the man at the desk, and the rocket. Uh-huh. And I initially commissioned this from the artist Casey Babb, collage artist who did my whole rollout, to make a man at a desk, and he made it me. And I was like, dog, I had a desk job for one day, and they sent me to get paper 3 blocks away, and I carried a stack of paper back to the office. I spent the night after that job writing a song, and I woke up late for work to a text that said, "Really?" from my manager. I'm not an office worker. Yeah. So he took the beard off of the character, gave him, chops instead and hair. Mm-hmm. But I just like the idea that this guy doesn't know what he wants to do.
He's a cog.
He's a cog. And you don't have to do anything. Your occupation and your debt should not define you. What do you like?
Yeah.
I hate getting the question, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, how about, seen any good movies?
It's very reductive.
You had any good meals recently?
Yeah.
Define your existence by your occupation now.
Right? Get out of here. That's something that doesn't happen in Portland.
Yeah, no.
Maybe on the west side of Portland.
It's like, what's the thing that you do to survive?
Yeah.
It's like, that's what we're going to define you by. Oh. What are you driven to out of necessity?
Yeah. I sold some some plasma a couple weeks ago. How's that?
Yeah, right.
You want to hear about that?
Yeah. I do think it's an important thing that the world needs to be reminded of frequently, which is that it is okay to simply exist. Right. That is all that is asked of us as human beings, and that, you don't necessarily have to accomplish or, become something or make something of yourself, because you are already something. You exist. It's miraculous,
It's miraculous. Just be the miracle. Just exist. I have a very hard time not working. And moving out to Portland has really helped me relax. Queens, we all know how fast-paced New York City is.
It never sleeps.
And I recently wrote a lyric that I caught the city napping and that karma woke it up again. And I was like, I'll think on that and put it in another song later. So I'm like, I don't want to diss New York now that I'm gone. It's still my favorite city in this country that I've been to, but I am young, and it's very exciting that I get to explore new cities, and being out here has taught me to sit back and watch things a little more. And it's fun putting this record out here. Nobody in the city expects a rapper that's I'm well-spoken and mild-mannered and all these horribly insulting words that people say about rappers, right? Because we are expected to be exactly not that. Right. And then I get on stage and scream and hit myself in the face and have existential crisis after existential crisis on stage. And it's kind of fun to be in such a generally chill place and bring this intensity. And I've also started writing a lot of music that might fit the vibes here more. I feel like this city really values people for who they are and not what they do. And that's something that is harder to find in other cities that are popping off like this one is.
Absolutely.
I feel that. Well, tell the people where they can find you.
All right.
We'll put the links in the description and stuff, but
I'm not always in Portland. I like to travel, but if you're looking for me on the internet, all you need to do is type into your search bar whatever you're in, Lt Headtrip. That's my name. I have at Lt Headtrip everywhere. You could email me at ltheadtrip@gmail.com. You can hit me up there. I have a lot of music videos for this project and for my previous projects. So if you want a little more context to the music that you're listening to, please check that out. I also encourage you, if you like video games, to check out my podcast, The Hyrule Podcasters. Me and my brother play through Zelda games. You can hear the game being played. We describe it as we go along, but it's all audio. So let's say you want to jog, but you want to play A Link to the Past. Bang, I got you. That's a lot of fun. I also run a record label called We Are the Karma Kids, shortened to WATKK. Most of the journalists that write about us just call us the Karma Kids. We have a lot of exciting music. I'm putting out a young artist's debut record very soon. And
it's always fun.
I love it. I'm so excited. We put out Miles Cook's record last year. Old Self just put out some stuff. Teddy Faley just put out some stuff. I encourage you to go listen to some of the music by some of my features. I know that a lot of you are familiar already with Elucid. Teddy Faley is a rapper that is on the Karma Kids, crushes his verse on Sheepdog. His album Teddy Brown Brown is fantastic. You can find that very easily. Colossal Structure is part of Gyroscope. He's another featured artist. Christina Pecce is very active in the Chicago music scene. Colossal Structure, Sketch 185, and Christina Pecce are all Chicago musicians. We got a lot of Chicago on tap on the glass. And I also encourage you to look up DOS, DOS 4GW. He's everywhere at that name. He makes a lot of interesting music. So if you like the beats on the album, please check that out. Again, wearethekarmakids.bandcamp.com is where you can actually buy things. I have these CDs for sale. I mostly sell them on the road, but I've put a few on the Bandcamp for you to buy as well. And I'm on Spotify, I'm on iTunes, I'm on all the places where I make a fraction of a penny. But if that's where you like to listen to music, thank you for listening. I'm not upset about it. Please stream all of my music if that's what you choose to do. I really appreciate it. I don't need your money. I value you taking any time to pay any attention. And maybe I'll be on the Nostalgia Pit, which is a really cool podcast that my dude Hash runs. There's so much media out there again, and I appreciate anybody that takes any time to listen to something that me or my homies have done. Thank you two so much. There's so many talented musicians in the city, and the fact that you invited me on just warms my heart, gave me a chance to talk about some of these songs in a way that I haven't gotten to deeply dive into. Yeah. And I really enjoyed rapping my ass off in this beautiful studio that you've built.
Thank you, man. Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. It was really nice talking to you.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. We'll catch you next time.
Head trip. Go, 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 go.
Picard.
Picard.